In today's video, I'll be talking about 5 fragrances from the brand Parfums de Marly, and I'm going to be asking the question, are they worth the hype? So stay tuned to hear my thoughts. Hey, what's going on guys? Raj here. I hope all of you out there are doing well. So Parfums de Marly is a brand that is from France. They're a niche fragrance house. I've spoken about a few of their fragrances on my channel in the past. I've reviewed Herod, Habdan and Oajan, and I will leave the link down below in the description box if you want to check those videos out. So in this one, I'll be talking about Carlisle, Pegasus, Layton Exclusif, Layton and Percival. So let's kick things off with the first one, and this one is Carlisle. The description, the timestamp for these fragrances are down below in the description box, and yeah, let's get things started with Carlisle. So the note breakdown for this one, there is in the top green apple and nutmeg. In the heart notes there's tonka bean and rose, and in the base notes there is vanilla and patchouli. Carlisle was one of those that I was keen to try this one, but it wasn't like up there as the one that I really wanted to try. But it turned out that based on the samples that I had recently picked up, Carlisle was actually my favorite of the bunch. I think this works so well on my skin. It has great lasting power. It really is one of those fragrances that won't come off your skin until you shower. It's not one that is aggressive in terms of its performance, but it just keeps going and going and has nice projection. You will be noticed with this one, even though I haven't, obviously with the lockdown and situation, I haven't worn this around anyone, but I do feel like this one would be a compliment getting fragrance if that is something that's really on your mind. For me, this one came across as tobacco-y. It came across as like a warm apple, almost gourmandish dessert kind of vibes. It is very much on the earthy side. I get a resinous feel with this one. It was so pleasant from start to finish. I didn't feel like there was a great deal of complexity or transition with this one, but you get this warm ambery glow that stays with you throughout the fragrance and just goes on and on and on. And if you are a fan of this type of accord or this style of fragrance, I guess that would be a great thing, but I would have preferred to have seen a little bit more development with this fragrance, but what you get is definitely a really good scent. Parfums de Marly do actually quite like to use the note of apple in their fragrances, and some of the times I think it comes across as really well. This one is, it's semi-sweet, there's a touch of floral in there. I also get the impression of like a honey note. There is this warm, ambery, honey type feeling with this fragrance. And overall, I've got to say, Carlisle was is a great fragrance to me. I'm going to give it a rating of 8.5 out of 10. As I said, I wouldn't have minded a little bit more transition. It does get a bit too linear, a bit too quickly, but there are like these nuances that you can pick up on throughout the life of the fragrance. Really good scent. Is it a fragrance I would add to my collection? I would definitely think about it. At Parfums de Marly prices, they're not the cheapest. Yes, you can find them on discount websites here and there, or there may be discount codes or whatever. But yeah, it's one that I would consider adding to my collection. It's not high up on the list, but we're definitely off to a good start, that's for sure. Pegasus is the next fragrance to talk about, and the top notes are cypress and violet leaf. In the heart there is lavender and jasmine. In the base notes there is amber and vanilla. On the Parfums de Marly website there is a picture of almonds. They don't mention it in the note breakdown, but there definitely is that kind of boozy almond feel with this fragrance. Pegasus is definitely nice. I don't find this one to be like a wow fragrance. It didn't have a wow factor, which I think is something that you really should expect from fragrances at this price point. This is niche level fragrances, well, at least in terms of price point and how they position themselves in the market. But this one was, even though I did like parts of it, it felt a little bit flat overall. What I get on my skin is this kind of boozy almond floral white musk, almost slightly aldehydic feel with this fragrance. It reminded me at times of Van Cleef & Arpels Midnight in Paris. If you take that almondy, boozy note, but you take away all the resinous and the vanillic side of the fragrance, it's nice. Again, it's not one of those that really changed on my skin too much. It was very pleasant, very, very easy to wear, had good lasting power. It was in that 8 to 10 hour range, but I felt it to be overall a bit of a flat experience. Even though I do describe it as flat, what you do get is quite nice. There is a smoothness with this fragrance that I did appreciate. I think the ingredients used in here are good. I wouldn't say they're of the highest quality to me, just basically based on my perception of what ingredients, how good they are and how they come across and how they're blended in a fragrance, and also how they just perform on my skin. But yeah, a touch of greenness. There's a light green, almondy, boozy accord in here. A little bit fizzy and a little bit aldehydic. Good fragrance, nothing spectacular, but I would give this one a rating of 7.5 out of 10. Next up is Layton Exclusif, and from what I can see, the fragrances which have exclusive in the title come at a higher price point. So this one, 125 ml, sells for £280. The notes for this one, in the top there's bergamot and grapefruit. In the heart notes there's geranium and cinnamon, and in the base notes there is a cypriol and gaiac wood essence. Layton Exclusif is actually my scent of the day, and it's one of those that I have to admit I warmed up to this fragrance. At first I found it a little bit too heavy. I found it a bit too earthy, too soil-like. It came across as slightly animalic, but as I started to wear this fragrance, I definitely grew to appreciate it a little bit more. It actually became a lot more smoother on my skin and not as heavy as I once thought it was during my first couple of times of wearing this one. Yeah, there is like this soily feel, which isn't sort of my favorite type of accord. I have smelled this in other fragrances where it has this wet earth feeling. It feels like you are walking through a forest with lots of trees and it's just rained, so you get that wood bark, you get that forest floor kind of feel, but more soil rather than anything mossy, dirty slightly, but that does kind of smooth out a little bit, and you get like a deep woody feel. You get this heavy musk feel, touch of animalic. It's very it feels very, very masculine. It has a good staying power, and it is quite a sort of a bold accord, I would say. A little bit like Carlisle in the sense that it is quite linear in terms of how it progresses. I don't find this one to be that great, to be honest. I would like more development. I would like more notes to come through. It just feels like a couple of heavy, musky, woody soil notes that just go on forever. I don't find this fragrance to be particularly refined, and actually I think it's way too expensive for what it is. Yes, you could always say fragrances are available at discounts, but you could say that about every fragrance, to be honest. Layton Exclusif, even though I can appreciate what they've done with this one, I think they have tried to go down a little bit more of a bolder feel, and Parfums de Marly do have these fragrances. They do have some fragrances that can be very heavy on the woods or the smoke. This one is a little bit more tamed compared to some of the other ones that I've tried, and kind of does stand out a little bit in the whole Parfums de Marly lineup. But one that didn't really knock my socks off, to be honest. At this price point, I'm expecting a lot more, and it didn't quite deliver. So I'm going to rate this one 7 out of 10. Okay, so I've spoken about Layton Exclusif. Now it's time to talk about the original one. So the original Layton. This one I was really interested to try. I don't know why this one versus all the others, I was like the most keen to try. But yeah, so in terms of the notes, again, you've got apple in the opening along with bergamot. You've got heart notes of jasmine and violet, and in the base notes there's vanilla and pepper. I guess they mean black pepper. Also a couple of other accords that they talk about which aren't in the note breakdown. They mention caramelized coffee. So on paper, everything sounds really, really good. On my skin, it's another story. Layton at times felt very, very promising. It felt like it could go somewhere. It felt like it could be a really wonderful fragrance, but it just never got out of first gear. I find this one to be very transparent, and transparency in fragrances can actually be a good thing as long as the ingredients that are there are noticeable and just good ingredients. But to be honest, on my skin, Layton was very dull. It was very, very bland, actually, to be honest. And I really wanted to like this one. It never developed on my skin past this very watery, rosy type accord. I've actually done a fresh spray because I've pretty much come to the end of this sample. There is a kind of a hint of an apple accord, but I'm really trying to reach for it. You know, the notes that just came off my skin was something a little bit sweet, a little bit generic, a little bit woody. It felt like a fragrance that had dried down 24 hours into this fragrance, and you're kind of getting a remnant of what was there in the opening. It could be a skin issue, it could just be my skin, but kind of disappointing, if I'm honest. I don't get any sort of development. Nothing in here really stands out for me, and there is no from a sort of emotional point of view, it doesn't bring out any sort of responses in me. I don't smell this and think, wow, the ingredients are amazing, or okay, I don't necessarily like the style, but I can see what they're doing with these accords. It's not particularly risk-taking. It was just very kind of boring, honestly, on my skin. I was a bit disappointed, actually, because I don't know, maybe I had just hyped it up in my head and I thought it was going to be better. Very, very ordinary smelling. I don't see how this can be considered like a niche fragrance. A niche fragrance for me doesn't have to be something crazy and wild. It just has to be something that is a lot better than designer fragrances. This, for me, doesn't bring anything interesting to the table, and it gets a rating of 6 out of 10. The next fragrance to talk about is Percival, and what Parfums de Marly have tried to do here is go in a fresher route, and I think that's definitely a welcome addition because a lot of their fragrances are, let's just say, on the more heavier side, more deeper, denser ingredients. With this one, they have attempted to create a fresh fragrance, and actually there are a couple in their line that are like this. I would say from a conceptual point of view, from a execution point of view, I think they've definitely, or the perfumer has definitely achieved this. He's definitely nailed the brief. Having said that, I find Percival to be a very disappointing fragrance. Note breakdown: in the top note there is top notes there is a bergamot and mandarin. In the heart notes there's lavender and geranium. In the base notes there's balsam fir and what they just call it woody spices. Don't really know what that means. Yeah, so this one, they say the fresh, sensual and refined scent of a great aromatic fragrance sublimated by musk and woody spices. On paper, this sounds like a fragrance that I would like, but I have to say, performance, I'll just mention performance. Performance is decent, you know, I'm getting around that 7 to 8 hour range, and then it does linger actually for a little bit longer than that, but very, very much a skin scent. The opening for me is, whoa, so bad. It's so bad. It's unbelievably bad. It really does remind me of a kind of decent deodorant. You know, here in the UK, and also they have some international stores. But there is a brand called Marks and Spencer's, and this reminds me of like a gift set that your aunt might buy you for Christmas that contains a deodorant and a shower gel, and it's nothing spectacular. It smells so ordinary. It really does take me back to my high school days after playing sports, in the changing room, everybody's spraying on Lynx and Axe body spray, and that just fills the room. It's kind of like that, but better. Like, it's not exactly like a deodorant. It kind of does very, very strongly remind me of that. Thankfully, that doesn't linger around for too long. You do get a lot, in the opening couple of hours, you do get a lot of these very, very strong aroma chemicals in here. There is like a lot of filler, this Ambroxan style fragrance that really is around in the market a lot, is so heavy in the opening couple of hours. I was just like shocked that this can be a fragrance considered to be a niche fragrance and selling at this price. To be fair to Percival, it definitely does improve, and I do actually enjoy it a little bit more as the fragrance develops. But remember, we're starting from, for me, a very, very low base. And what I do start to get later on in this fragrance is like this almost like a juniper berry, fresh, spicy, but fresh at the same time accord. It's very much a blob of a fragrance, hard to pick out individual notes, which isn't always a big deal. I'm not always trying to like break down every single fragrance like it's some sort of complex mathematical equation, but what I just got on my skin was a generic woody feel, a slightly marine style quality, and just smelling this one from the cap, almost like a touch of like an orangey citrus that kind of just stays and lingers around, which actually I didn't mind. I quite liked that part of the fragrance. The citruses I kind of liked, but everything else was just a real failure on my skin. The thing with this fragrance is that, and I would say a lot of Parfums de Marly fragrances, is that you really can find better fragrances for much cheaper. One of the sort of selling points, or one of the points that a lot of people like about Parfums de Marly and also Percival, is that a lot of the time they're very easy to wear, easy to reach, versatile, they can be mass appealing, compliment getting fragrances, and I think, okay, great, I think that's a good thing. I'm all for these types of fragrances. But what do you think the designer fragrance market exists for? It really is giving you a lot of those fragrances, so why would I spend this type of money, even at a discount, to smell like this? This strongly reminds me of fragrances like Bleu de Chanel, like Sauvage, specifically the Parfum version. Maybe a fragrance like Carbon Low Intense. I think all of these are, if not better, certainly on a par with Percival. The fragrance actually that it reminds me the most of is Viking by Creed. People say Abercrombie and Fitch Fierce. It's been a long time since I've smelled that one. And to be honest, from memory, it didn't really remind me of Percival. A lot of people are also saying Mont Blanc Legend. Yes, in terms of style, not really in terms of olfactory profile. Viking by Creed is actually the one that really reminds me of Percival. And if you like that style, but you don't want to spend Creed money, hey, take a look at this Parfums de Marly one, because it's cheaper. So yeah, in conclusion, it doesn't really bring anything new to the table that hasn't really been done before in a designer brand, and you can do a lot more for your money, if I'm honest with you. Percival gets a rating of 5 out of 10. Guys, I'd love to hear your thoughts on Parfums de Marly, whether you agree with me or whether you disagree with me. It's totally cool. Whatever your view is, please do let me know. Which ones are your favorites? Which ones do you love, on the fence, or dislike? And I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching. Take care, everyone. Bye.